I got panicked, so it just came out here.
We didn't know that there were not going to be trailers before the film, so really thought, can you hear me?
No. Hello. I mean, I think. No, they are. I think they are.
They are? Oh, now they are. Okay. Okay, let's just start. I understand, but that's okay. Thank you. Take your chair. Well, we're going to start with. Some people call this a screwball comedy. I can see why now, actually. But do you see it that way?
Yeah, but I mean, it was a strain of influence, particularly like with the second half of the movie. I love those 30s and 40s movies, like Preston Sturges and George Cukor and Ernst Lubitsch, and that kind of fast-talking craziness. And so we wanted to mimic some of that. Plus, nobody really makes movies like that anymore. So when we kind of were like, let's do one.
How did this start? Because I understand that it started with your character, Brooke, who was in another movie you and Noah were co-writing, and she ran away with her own movie somehow.
I had sort of a half-finished movie, and then she came up as a character in that, and then we met her in Vermont. This other movie took place in Vermont, but she lived in Times Square, and we were like, we want to go see her life. That's hilarious. So I'm like, let's follow her. And so yeah, she kind of ended up, growing her own film.
And was she a different character, particularly?
I guess when she was in that movie, she was a slightly different character. I mean, she had a different job, but she was essentially the same person. She had her name was Brooke Cardenas, but she had a slightly different set of circumstances, but she was, her soul was the same.
There's so much in this film about borrowing other people's lives to create fiction. Is there somebody whose life you borrow for these characters?
Well, I borrow from my own life to create the characters, as Noah borrows from his life. But then, I mean, Brooke isn't anyone I know specifically. She's an amalgamation of a lot of people. Brooke's always like performing. She's kind of always acting, and so it felt like in a way, she already felt cinematic in and of herself. She felt like she belonged to, whatever Melanie Griffith was in the 80s, that Brooke felt like a spiritual sister to.
One more thing about Times Square, which is a weird place to live. It's a lot easier to write that in a screenplay than it is to actually shoot in Times Square. What was that like? Did you have to shut down the place or do it surreptitiously, or how did that all happen?
Yeah, no, we couldn't shut it down. We just, but we did it. Yeah, we wrote all this stuff in Times Square, and we wrote her character introduction, that she walks down the TKTS steps, and that she makes a gesture that she realizes halfway down the steps isn't long enough to cover the whole step. And then we didn't know if we could shoot there or not, and then we went there in the middle of the night at like 2 in the morning, and we did, and it worked. Yeah, I mean, it's always like tricky shooting on the streets of New York, the way we do. But the upside of it is that when you get something that works, then you have actual life in it and actual people, as opposed to like, movie extras, which they're always checking their watches. Look at any big Hollywood movie, all the extras are like. And then they're like nodding.
Did you write the character for yourself, or did you ever think of casting somebody else?
Well, when we write these movies, Noah and I also wrote a movie, Frances Ha, together, and we wrote this together. I feel like it's very hard for me to write when I'm thinking about myself playing a character, because I sort of need to get in the headspace of all the characters, because that's sort of the job, and then. But because we don't do improvisation or change any of the lines, that really there's a pretty stark separation for me between acting and writing. I think Noah always knows that I'm going to play the parts, but I don't. Or I mean, I know sort of, but I don't think about it. I can't. Otherwise, I can't write it. But then, yeah, and then when I get on set, I almost like approach it as if I didn't write it. It's like, who wrote this garbage?
But then you can change it because you're the writer, so.
We don't change it, though.
You don't?
No. No, we just have to live with those stupid lines. Like some joke we thought was funny like 6 months ago.
Where does Brooke end up after?
Well, I mean, she's going to LA, and I guess that's like part of the melancholy of the movie for me is that New York can't support that kind of hustler anymore, that that person leaves now. But I don't really, for me, I think my favorite part about movies really is the 90 minutes and then it's over feeling, and there's some, I mean that in and of itself is melancholy, and it's just sort of curtains. I don't even like DVD extras, so I feel like it's not that I don't care about my characters where they go, it's more that that's all we know, and that's part of what's sad and great about movies.
Talk about shooting in that house. How long was that grueling? What was that about?
It was a long time. It was, well, the whole shoot was like 60 days of shooting, which is a long time, and that house, I feel like, was a month or something of shooting. It was an amazing house to shoot in. We wrote it as a glass house, and then we found this amazing glass house, and Noah really liked all the exposed stairways, so you could sort of see people running up and down, and you could be coming into rooms in all these different ways. I mean, it was really fun to have all the actors doing, like, 8 people in a room yelling at each other. It was great. I know it took a long time because the woman, Cindy Chung, who plays the abandoned pregnant woman, she was actually pregnant, and she was like, I'm gonna give birth. You guys have to stop shooting it. And so, and then she went away and gave birth, and then was back 2 weeks later, and she shot a tiny section with a fake belly. So he shot through a child being born. It's funny, like Breakfast at Tiffany's was not like one of the movies we talked about, but it's been something that's been brought up to me, which I mean, it makes sense when I think about it now. It makes sense. I don't like Breakfast at Tiffany's. Is that so bad? I don't know. I just don't. It's not my favorite one. I don't know. I don't know why I don't like that movie. I guess because I don't know. I'm not sure. But sorry, that's a terrible answer. But yeah, I mean, definitely there is, like, I think Breakfast at Tiffany's, and then like the movies we were thinking about more explicitly, like Something Wild and After Hours, that there was like this kind of crazy downtown underground woman who drags the yuppie into something maybe not totally normal. And that, I think they were probably building on those tropes. But yeah, it's usually a man being dragged in, and I don't know, we wanted to do it with two ladies.
The question is, did you borrow from your life at Barnard for the literary scenes and the college things?
Yes. Someone in a Q&A in another city was like, what club you find out you get in by getting a pie in your face? And I was like, there was a club at Columbia that you found out by getting a pie in your face. And I really wanted that pie, and I waited up all night for it and never got it. But in the movie, I do.
Something movies can do, that's a good thing. Would this work as an off-Broadway play, as a screwball kind of off-Broadway play?
I don't know. I don't think we ever would, but I love theater, and I come from, that's like my first love, and that's the kind of background I come from, and I don't think I would want to see this film done as a play, but I'd love to write for theater. I got rejected from all 3 graduate schools I applied to in playwriting, so I don't know, my confidence is maybe shot around that, but we'll see. Maybe I'll get confident again.
What inspired the psychic part of it?
Well, it felt like Brooke would have a psychic. I mean, if she needed advice, it was like, she'll go to a psychic. And that is actually a psychic. He's a real, that's what he does. And he's great. And he lives in Soho. and he's been a psychic for a really long time. And he was, he did tell us, we wrote him those lines, and he said them, and he was great. But he was like, I would never say any of this. Incorrect. We've liked psychics in other movies, so we wanted to give her one.
Did he tell you anything off camera that made sense?
You didn't do a reading for me, but I do know. But I have, since we shot that movie, people in New York who I know who are like super cool. They're like, oh my God, you went to him? He's the best. You know, that guy.
Great film. I really related to Brooke in the sense of the fact that she's probably still dealing with the death of her mother. Is that, I mean, it definitely comes up, but we don't really see we don't really see a lot of how that might actually relate to everything that Brooke experiences and how she sees life and sort of this like manic, wants to do all of these things. Was that intentional, and is that very much a part of who she is that maybe she's not quite fully dealing with?
I think it was like a massive tragedy in Brooke's life, and I think she wears it almost defensively because it's the way she's decided to cope with it. But I think I always think about that when in the scene where the woman confronts her from high school and says like, you know, why were you so mean to me? And you know, when most of us think of how we would respond, I think we'd all say like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. You know, that we were young, and I'm really sorry that I gave you a hard time. And the Brooke kind of goes on the attack. But the sort of background of it is that probably her mother was dying while she was in high school, and that, you know, hurt people. So I think it's like a way of externalizing her own pain. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of tragedy and melancholy and sadness that people wear almost to the side of themselves, and that it's just there. It's something, it's not over talked about, and I think it's something I've seen, and it's something we want to give the character.
Is there any significance to the colors and the font of the credits?
No, but I know what you're talking about. It frustrated me the first time I saw it because I felt like I was trying to, you know, like in movies about geniuses when they have like letters and numbers. I was like, am I a genius? Doesn't spell anything. No, but the title design was done by Pascal Danjean, and he has a studio called The Box, and they do the color correction and they do our titles, and he's like a genius. He makes films look beautiful, and anyway, he came up with it, and we liked it. And I think if the titles were all up to me, it would have all been done in that, like at the end when it's like the Mistress America and the pink font. I was like, what if we did that the whole time? And Noah was like, that's so gauche.
How do you think that Frances Ha and Brooke would get along?
You know, I don't know. It's funny. I think of them in totally their own universes. Like, I don't even though both of the movies sort of ostensibly take place now-ish, that they feel like they're decades removed. Like, Brooke, to me, feels like she's like late 80s, early 90s, and Frances seems like it's, you know, early 1960s. I don't think they get along, actually. I think they're crazy in completely incompatible ways, but different ways with each other. But I don't know. They're made up.
One more question for me. I understand that you are going to write and direct your first film on your own. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it's written, and I have to direct it.
You're not going to be in it?
No, I'm not going to be in it, no. But yes, I'm looking forward to it.
Is it a comedy?
It's sort of funny.
Well, I'm sure it will be. This was very funny. This is and touching.